This is the story of a desert motel where one of rock music's most influential figures spent his final night, and what his friends did with his body afterward is one of the strangest stories in American music history. A man died here. His corpse was stolen from an airport, then burned in the dark next to a pile of rocks, and the people responsible walked out of court with a fine smaller than a monthly car payment. The Joshua Tree Inn sits at 61,259 29 Palms Highway in the Mojave Desert, about 130 miles east of Los Angeles. It was built in 1950 as a single-story Spanish colonial property with roughly 11 rooms facing a desert courtyard and a swimming pool. Nothing about it suggests music history. The desert around it had been pulling artists and musicians away from the city since the 1960s, drawn by the isolation, the silence, and the particular creative strangeness the Mojave produces. Gram Parsons had been coming here since around 1969, and that same year he and Keith Richards made a celebrated trip to Joshua Tree, swallowed psychedelics together, and came back with stories about UFO sightings above the rocks. Parsons was not a household name in 1973 and never placed a single record on a chart during his lifetime. And none of that stopped him from reshaping American music in ways that would take decades to fully register. The genre he called cosmic American music, his term for a fusion of country, rhythm and blues, soul, rock, and folk, had no real name before he invented it. Rolling Stone eventually ranked him among the 100 greatest artists of all time, though that recognition came long after he was gone. He was born Ingram Cecil Connor III on November 5, 1946, in Winter Haven, Florida. Parsons came from citrus money. His grandfather had at peak produced roughly a third of all oranges grown in the state, and that fortune became a trust fund paying Gram $30,000 a year once he turned 21. What the money could not protect him from was everything else. His father, a decorated World War II flying ace, shot himself on December 23, 1958, when Gram was 12. His mother died of alcoholism on the exact day of his high school graduation in June 1965, which meant Gram collected his diploma the same morning he lost his second parent. Harvard came next, lasted one semester, and music took over entirely. By 1973, Parsons had just finished recording his second solo album, Grievous Angel, with Emmylou Harris, who had been an obscure Washington, D.C. folk singer before he found her. The album was finished, the tour was booked, and his attorney was preparing divorce papers from his wife Gretchen, scheduled to be served on September 20th. On September 17, 1973, Parsons arrived at the Joshua Tree Inn with his assistant Michael Martin, Martin's girlfriend Dale McElroy, and his rekindled girlfriend Margaret Fisher. They took rooms 1 and 8, spent 2 days moving between the desert and local bars, and consumed significant quantities of alcohol and barbiturates in the evenings. On September 18th, Martin drove back to Los Angeles for marijuana, leaving only 3 people at the motel. That evening, Parsons encountered a woman who supplied liquid morphine. He bought it from her. She injected both Parsons and Fisher, and Parsons also drank 6 double tequilas over the course of the night. The overdose happened in room 1. Fisher administered an ice cube suppository, a folk remedy for opiate overdose, and it briefly worked. Parsons regained consciousness, made a joke, walked around, and returned to room 8 to sleep. Fisher went out for coffee, leaving McElroy to watch him, and within 20 minutes, McElroy noticed Parsons breathing, becoming labored and irregular. Both women attempted resuscitation. The motel owner's husband called an ambulance, Parsons was admitted to High Desert Memorial Hospital in Yucca Valley at 12:15 in the morning on September 19, 1973, and he was pronounced dead 15 minutes later. His blood alcohol level was 0.21%. The official finding was drug toxicity due to multiple drug use. Gram Parsons was 26 years old. And this is where the story takes a turn nobody in music or law enforcement had encountered before. Phil Kaufman was Parsons' road manager, a man whose biography already included a prison stint at Terminal Island, where his cellmate was Charles Manson, whose music Kaufman had gone on to produce. 2 months before the death, at the July 1973 funeral of Byrds guitarist Clarence White, Parsons told Kaufman that it was bullshit, and that if he died, he wanted somebody to have a few beers, take him out to the desert, and burn his body. Kaufman said it was a deal. He intended to collect. The Parsons family arranged a private New Orleans funeral and excluded the entire music community. The coffin sat in Western Airlines cargo at Los Angeles International Airport, waiting for a southbound flight. On the evening of September 20th, Kaufman and Martin climbed into Dale McElroy's 1953 Cadillac hearse with broken windows and no license plates. They were dressed in rhinestone jackets and cowboy hats. They drove to LAX, heavily intoxicated, and told the cargo manager that the family had changed the shipping plan. Kaufman signed the release as Jeremy Nobody. While loading the coffin, a police cruiser pulled up and blocked them. Kaufman walked over and asked the officer to help lift the heavy casket, and the officer complied. Martin then drove the hearse into the hangar wall in front of the same officer, and they were still permitted to leave. About a quarter mile from the Cap Rock Formation, somewhere around 1 in the morning on September 21st, Kaufman opened the coffin. Parsons was inside, naked, with surgical tape over his autopsy incisions. Kaufman poured 5 gallons of gasoline into the open casket and struck a match. Kaufman later described it this way: "The body actually bubbled, and then we saw his ashes flying up into the night. Approaching headlights sent them out of the desert." Campers found the burning casket the next morning. A Western Airlines body bag near the site connected the scene to the airport, and both men were identified from mugshots within days. Kaufman was arrested September 26th. Martin surrendered September 27th. The problem was that California had no law against stealing a corpse, because a dead body carried no intrinsic value under state law. That meant the most serious available charge was theft of the wooden coffin. The case earned a nickname, Gram Theft Parsons. Both men received misdemeanor theft convictions, 30-day suspended sentences, fines of $300 each, plus $708 for the coffin. McElroy paid the total. The complete legal consequence for stealing a rock star's body from an international airport and burning it in a national monument came to roughly $1,300 and 0 days in jail. They appeared in court on what would have been Parsons's 27th birthday. 35 pounds of remains were shipped to New Orleans and buried at Garden of Memories Cemetery in Metairie, Louisiana. The tombstone reads, "God's Own Singer." Emmylou Harris went on to win 14 Grammy Awards and enter the Country Music Hall of Fame. The Eagles were built in part by Bernie Leadon, who came directly from Parsons' Flying Burrito Brothers. Keith Richards, who credited Parsons with teaching him the Bakersfield way of writing melodies and lyrics, said it plainly: "Gram Parsons, who never actually had a hit record of his own ever, has got one of the most solid and faithful followings of any artist that I can think of." The Joshua Tree Inn still operates today. It was purchased in 2002 by retired schoolteacher Margot Paolucci, who converted it to solar power and named the rooms after the musicians who passed through. Room 8 is available to book. Paolucci holds it for guests who specifically request it, and it often books months in advance. The only surviving piece of original 1973 furniture is a round mirror with a gold frame, still on the same wall it occupied the night Parsons died. On September 19, 2023, the 50th anniversary, a permanent memorial went up near Cap Rock. Keith Richards contributed a quote for it. "I think he was just getting into his stride when he died." A man who never charted a record, dead at 26, whose body was stolen and burned in the desert, fined $1,300, and who left a deeper mark on American music than most artists with walls full of platinum records ever managed. Room 8 is booked. The mirror is still there.